As you can see, we're not in the shop for this project, just out in the driveway at home, using minimal tools to build an easy but incredibly strong workbench. I'm actually using this for something else, more on that at the end of the video, but there are plans available for this workbench for free on my website, linked below and down in the video description. When you're grabbing these free plans, just be sure to browse through the several other sets of plans I have for anything else you may be interested in if you'd like to help support the channel. Really, this bench could be built with just a circular saw and drill, but I did bust out one more tool so I could rip off all these beat up and rounded over edges on the table saw. Normally this would just be for aesthetics, but I actually am working with pretty tight tolerances here for what I need the overall height of the frame to be, and also the distance between the top and bottom frames. So everything needs ripped down just a bit to fit what I need. With all the pieces squared up, I could start working on the joinery to put them all together, and for that I'm using half lap joints. This is going to support a lot of weight and be moved and jostled around a lot, so I truly need this to be built strong, and that's what we're going to get with lap joints. Solid wood-on-wood connections with lots of glue surface and nowhere that is solely relying on mechanical fasteners like screws that can fail or strip out over time. I seem to be in a stretch of using lap joints quite a bit in my recent videos, and I've been using a dado stack on the table saw to get them cut quickly. Of course, giving the classic YouTube line, if you don't have this tool, you could use so-and-so method. So here we are, just using a circular saw. A bit more time consuming, but getting the job done nonetheless. I've got the blade depth set to 1.5 inches to match the thickness of the 2x4s for the frames, and then cutting them 3 inches wide to match the width of the 2x4s after ripping them down. Just making multiple passes and then clearing away what's left with a chisel. You'll also see once I get down to the final pass or two, I'll go ahead and use a speed square as a saw guide to ensure that final cut is nice and square. Now for the two main frames. For just a regular standard use workbench, just butting the pieces and screwing them together would probably be fine, but like I said, I need this thing to be stout, and in my case, all the weight will actually be bearing on those center pieces, so we're going to use lap joints on all those as well to make them nice and strong. So it's more of the same, just making multiple passes with the circular saw, but I am clamping all the pieces together to get them done at the same time. This of course makes it a lot faster, but also ensures they're all exactly the same. In no time at all the joints are cut and we can get the pieces glued and screwed together. I will point out my joints here are actually probably a bit too tight. When test fitting the pieces while cutting, they were dead on, but when we add glue to the joint, that makes the wood swell up a little bit. So that's just something to be aware of. Nothing a little mallet persuasion can't fix here, but there is a fine line between being too tight or too loose on these joints. It's better to err on the tight side and just slowly cut away more as you need to get a good fit. After getting the stretchers hammered in place, I added screws on the bottom side to get them pulled tight and act as clamps until the glue dries. I put them going up through the bottom just so they're not visible in the end. It doesn't really matter, but if we can avoid having to look at all the screw holes, might as well. With the two frames built, the last thing to do is get them joined to the legs with glue and screws from both the inside and outside. Up next was flipping the table over and getting the casters screwed on, so all the weight from both the legs and the main frames is supported and transferred right down to the ground. And at this point our workbench frame is done. Very quick and cheap, but most importantly, strong. All that would be left to do is add your plywood or melamine or whatever you want to use as your shelf and worktop material. But I did decide to go ahead and prime and paint the frame to dress it up a bit before finishing it for what I'm actually using it for. I would assume that most of you that subscribe to the channel, your hobby is woodworking or working on your home. So a glimpse inside to one of my favorite hobbies to get away from this stuff is bass fishing. Kayak tournament bass fishing in particular, and these obnoxiously big, fully rigged Hobie kayaks. I've seen guys build these carts using the heavy-duty Rubbermaid carts and they work great. But I cheaped out and have been using one of these metal carts from Harbor Freight, which in hindsight was way more expensive than the one I just got done building, but as you can kind of see here, the metal is just way too thin and flimsy, and this thing is about to collapse at any minute. Plus I recently won a second kayak, so I'm running out of room in the garage, and the best space-saving thing to do is to always go vertical by stacking them up here. So this has been working out amazing, and I'm no longer afraid my kayak is going to come crashing down with the old cart collapsing. And I know a lot of you probably wouldn't have watched the video if I titled it Building a Kayak Cart, but seriously, this would make one awesome and sturdy workbench for sure. So be sure to grab those free plans and check out all my other plans as well. As always, all the tools and products you saw throughout the video will be linked down below as well. Until next time, take care.